All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to look at a few things that seem totally separate. You've got a massive food crisis brewing for millions of people, a political meltdown in Washington, and a military buildup thousands of miles from home. What if I told you they're not separate events at all? What if they're all connected pieces of a much bigger, much darker story? Let's get into it.
So take a look at this number, 42 million. It's a huge number, right? What do you think it is? The Powerball jackpot? The population of a country somewhere? No, it's something much, much closer to home. And way more critical.
That's it. 42 million Americans are right on the edge of losing their SNAP benefits. You know, what most of us still call food stamps. All because the government shut down. This isn't a statistic. This is the real human cost at the heart of what we're talking about today.
It just doesn't seem to add up, does it? A domestic budget squabble, a local food crisis in a rural county, and some geopolitical chess game way over in South America. But what if they're not random? What if they're all designed to fit together in a much larger and much more deliberate puzzle? Okay, so let's start where it hurts the most, right here, on the ground. For millions of people, this isn't some abstract political debate on TV. This is a real-time emergency, and it's happening right now. So a court had to step in and force the government to release some emergency money. Sounds good, right? Well, let's look at what that actually means. People are getting only half their normal benefits, and even that little bit is delayed by up to 2 weeks. I mean, come on, that's not a solution. It's a Band-Aid on a gaping wound, and it just creates more panic and uncertainty.
And this slide? This is what that fear looks like. The data showing this huge spike in what one report calls existential psychological distress. You can see it right in the words people are using online. Scary, crisis, starving. This is that raw, gut-level fear that ripples through a community when the most basic safety net just gets ripped away.
And it's not just SNAP. The WIC program, which is a lifeline for millions of women and young kids, is just barely hanging on by a thread. It's running on this weird patchwork of temporary funds, but those funds are about to dry up. The projections show a 60 to 70% chance they'll be completely gone by December. It's like we're all watching the next domino just waiting to fall. Now, to really understand what this feels like, we've got to zoom in. We need to go from the 30,000-foot view right down to street level. So let's take a look at Josephine County, Oregon, a rural area where these big DC policies are hitting home and hitting hard. On the ground, the picture is just stark. Local food pantries? Their demand shot up by 50% overnight. They ran out of crucial stuff like chicken and turkey within the first 2 hours of opening their doors. This is what it looks like when the system just completely buckles. And this quote, wow, this just nails the feeling on the ground. It's from a local resident, a woman named Shauna. It captures this incredible sense of being completely abandoned. It's not just about a missing check. It's about losing faith in the very systems that are supposed to be there for you when you need them most.
Now let's pull the camera all the way back from that personal crisis to the political stage. Because while families are literally scrambling to find food, Washington is busy playing a very, very different kind of game.
The rhetoric is just so predictable. It's completely polarized. One side claims the Democrats are holding Americans hostage to get benefits for immigrants. The other side fires back that the president is using hungry children as bargaining chips. It's what one report calls a kabuki theater, a big, dramatic performance of conflict that's all for show. And when you mix that genuine hardship with all this political finger-pointing, it inevitably spills into the streets. On November 5th, protests organized by groups like Refuse Fascism started to pop up. That anxiety we saw in the data, it's not just on social media anymore, it's turning into real-world action. But here's the big question. Is all this just chaos? Or is there a connection here? A link between the food shortages, the political blame game, and the protests? While according to a classified report from a private intelligence group called Aionios Vanguard, there absolutely is. They offer a theory that reframes this whole crisis, not as an accident, but as a deliberate plan. So the report's central idea revolves around this concept it calls the hollow crown. It argues that this isn't about Republicans versus Democrats, no. Instead, it claims there's a unified elite class spanning both sides of the aisle that manufactures these crises to push through a hidden agenda.
And the framework they say is being used to pull this off is the Hegelian dialectic. It sounds really academic, but it's a simple and pretty terrifying three-step process. First, you create a problem. That's the thesis. Then, you generate a public reaction to that problem, usually fear and anger. That's the antithesis. And finally, you swoop in and offer your pre-planned solution to the very reaction you created. That's the synthesis. Problem, reaction, solution.
So how does the report apply this framework to what's happening today? It argues this hollow crown is orchestrating a war on two fronts. One is a soma war, a physical war that we feel right here at home. And the other is a psyche war, a psychological one that's designed to distract us with events happening far away.
Okay, this slide right here, this is the absolute core of the Aionios Vanguard theory. Let's break it down. First, you've got the physical war, the soma war. The report claims the weapon isn't a bomb, it's the food crisis. The official story is that it's just a result of political gridlock. But the real mission, according to this report, is to weaponize the budget to force major policy changes. Then you've got the psychological war, the psych war. The distraction is this escalating crisis in Venezuela. The stated reason is all about national security, but the report claims its real purpose is to be a giant smokescreen, a distraction to keep all of our eyes off the real war happening right here at home.
And here's the report's conclusion in one single, chilling sentence. What we're seeing isn't political incompetence, it's a unified elite strategy sacrificing public welfare for political leverage. So, if you believe this theory, what are you supposed to do? The report doesn't just diagnose the problem, it also proposes a solution, which it calls the aegis, or the shield.
And the aegis isn't about going to protest in Washington. It's about direct, practical, community-level action to counter the effects of this so-called soma war. The report gets really specific. Donate cash, not food, because it lets pantries buy exactly what they need in bulk. 2, prioritize protein, canned tuna, chicken, beans, because that's the first thing to disappear. And 3, just show up. Volunteer your time for things like directing traffic or helping de-escalate tensions at overwhelmed food banks.
Ultimately, the report's whole philosophy is this: you don't fight a centralized system on its own terms. The real solution is what it calls decentralized truth, seeing the alleged plan for what it is, and then acting locally to shield your own community from the fallout.
And that leaves us with one final, crucial question. Whether you accept this whole Aionios Vanguard theory or not, it forces us all to ask, in moments of profound crisis, when everything seems to be breaking down, how do we tell the difference between just random, unfortunate chaos and a deliberate, hidden plan? That's something to think about.